It's Chelsea.
It's Nina.
And you're in the Critic's Kingdom.
Galaxy is ours, my girl. The galaxy is ours. Welcome to Zenon The Zequel.
Yes.
Zenon
2.
Zenon 2, the first sequel that Disney Channel original movies ever produced.
Yes, because this came out in 2001.
2 years after the original.
Yep.
And it makes sense why they did a sequel, because the first one was, I am sure, did really well. It was beloved. Because it's still beloved.
It's still one of those ones that I feel like people kind of forget Zenon was a DCOM, but as soon as you bring it up,
it's like one of the ones that I feel like people will sometimes forget to say that they what's your top 3? So you'll do the Smart House, you'll do those, you'll forget Zenon. Then the moment someone says Zenon, you're like, oh wait a minute, Zenon.
Girls in Space.
Girls in Space, yes, yes.
So yeah, I guess with that, let's get into the recap. So it begins with Zenon doing what she does best, which is wreak havoc and cause chaos. In Commander Plank's office this particular time, she takes Nebula to this room and she's like, oh, you can play this little game. And they play the game without knowing that it actually controls the door to Commander Plank's office. To space. Not just to the rest of the space station. No, into space. It opens up the door into space. So all of his things go flying out into space. So of course she gets in trouble because everybody is like, girl, and she's like, I didn't know. And Commander Plank's like, yeah, right.
You know everything, Zenon.
He's liar. Like, yeah, right. Unfortunately for Zenon, also, Greg breaks up with her via telecommunication device because he's obviously not up in space station with her. So she's just overall having a bad day. Not to mention that the space station has now come under military command.
Because their last owner tried to sabotage them out of the
a lot of damage. So now the military is we need to intervene so we can figure out what's going on here, and we may have to decommission different parts of the space station in order to make things work as they should. And as soon as the general comes up there, everybody is all lined up. They find out that the General Hammond, is actually Margie from the first movie's father. So Margie comes up as well. So then Zenon is, of course, oh God, this is my worst enemy. I cannot stand this girl. And now I'm going to have to show her around because the General is I've heard you're a special young lady, Miss Zenon, and I want you to take on the task of hosting my daughter. So Margie is, of course, just basically puts Zenon through hell because she knows she can, and because she has the power to tell her father, oh, I think Zenon's parents, part of the space station, should be decommissioned, and at that point they have to get sent home. So the next couple, back to Earth. Yeah. So the next couple of days we kind of see different decommissionings happening and different people getting sent back to Earth. And Zenon and her family hate it, and everybody's just on edge because they're we don't want to get sent back because we're considered redundant or not useful. And meanwhile, since Zenon messed up in Commander Plank's office, she's sent to the Alien Patrol Lab, where she's supposed to watch most of the night basically to see if they get any alien communications. And the guy that's always there is Orion, who's about her age.
Which is a strange thing.
Because he said he's been there for years.
Yeah, what's that? Since he was 8?
Because nothing happens. So nothing happens 90% of the time. You're just kind of hoping and waiting that this one night will be the night that the aliens decide to communicate with you.
And of course, because it's Zenon.
And because it's Zenon, the first night she's there, she hears a zoom, zoom, zoom. So then she calls Orion, and she's like, yo, dude, I heard something. She calls Commander Plank. She's like, I heard something. And they're like, yeah, right. You probably just heard, the station's humming and whatever. And then she's just like, I've lived here for all these years, but okay. I know what the space station sounds like. At this point,
why don't you believe this girl when she talks?
Exactly.
It really is strange.
And then when she goes back to her room, a couple days later, she hears another zoom, zoom, zoom. So she starts putting them together, and she realizes that it's the zoom, zoom, zoom from the Protozoa song. And she's like, oh my gosh, the aliens want to meet Protozoa.
Because she's 50.
And Nebula is just yeah, my girl's a little crazy, but sure.
And we are saying Nebula, but let's just know, as much as we as much as we like this actress,
it's Shadia Simmons playing her this time. It's not Raven.
It is not Raven, and therefore it's not Nebula.
Yeah. It's like the fake Nebula. And she's also...
throwing that out there.
The way that they characterize her in this one, I slightly don't agree with either, because she kind of falls in line with Margie and, like, wanting to do things with Margie versus, like, hanging out with Zenon, even though Zenon's been, like, her road dog.
Listen, real Nebula never would.
She never would have done
That's just how I feel.
But, yes. So, they're kind of having, like, kind of a little friend breakup as well, because, like, Nebula obviously wants to hang out with Margie because Margie has all the cool stuff because her dad is, like, the commander. But, you know, Zenon obviously and Margie don't get along, / Margie is booking Zenon to do pedicures for her. Literally books her to do a pedicure and manicure for that girl.
I remember being so mad.
Which, of course, Zenon then, like, you know, puts glue in and messes up. But, you know, because she's still Zenon at the end of the day. But during this friend breakup, she actually ends up finding out that Nebula and her parents are about to get sent back to Earth. And she's mad because it's, like, the day before that it's about to happen. And Nebula's like, well, we've been fighting, girl. Like, when was I supposed to tell you this? And at that point, Zenon's like, no. This can't last. I need to go back down to Earth because I need to find Protozoa. And I just need to get away from all of this nonsense. So Nebula finally goes down. But Zenon doesn't go to meet her and her family when they're taking off. And then we end up finding out it's because Zenon is a stowaway on the shuttle. So when they land on Earth, she gets, like, taken into, like, the baggage claim because she's wrapped in a box. Gets out and then realizes that Margie is sitting right there. And Margie is like, girl, it took you long enough to get out of that freaking box. I got out like 5 minutes ago. And then Zenon's like, why are you here? Because this was, like, my solo mission. But Margie's like, well, you're not going to do anything fun without me. So they end up going to her Aunt Judy's house. She's back again. And she was like, okay, I wasn't expecting 2 girls this time. Poor Aunt Judy. And she's super nervous. But they explained to her, like, we need to find Protozoa. Like, the aliens want to, like, meet with him. But nobody knows where he is because he's actually, like, low-key been missing on Earth for, like, a couple weeks now. Like, nobody knows where he is, even his manager. So they're like, we have to find him. So Zenon then comes up with, like, oh, well, let's look through song lyrics. Maybe he'll tell us where he is. And she listens to some song lyrics, and she's like, oh, I think he's at his, like, hidden hideaway called, like, Luna something or other.
Nova Linda.
Yeah, Nova Linda. That's what it is. So she's like, me and Margie need to go to Nova Linda. Aunt Judy, you know, drives them there hesitantly, but she does it because at the end of the day, she just wants to make Zenon happy.
Great aunt, horrible caretaker.
Literally. She drives them to, like, the beach, but they have to go. Nova Linda is, like, up in the mountains, so they have to go hike up through the mountains, her and Margie. Margie's complaining the entire way because obviously Margie isn't used to this, and Zenon is Zenon, so she's always ready to put on her good old hiking boots.
Even though she also should be very not used to this.
Yes.
She really does just take to this ground.
The adrenaline just fuels her.
Terra firma is where she's always been.
That woman has so much adrenaline in her. It's
Leo, man.
Literally a Leo. And so they finally make it up to Nova Linda. They see Protozoa. Protozoa is like, what are y'all doing here? He remembers Zenon, of course, but Margie's also just in, like, a stunned, like, shocked. She's just shocked the whole time she's with him because she's like, he's this big music star. But they explain to him, the aliens are trying to contact you, like, blah, blah, blah. Protozoa's like, well, I've been, you know, up here being a recluse because, like, I have writer's block, / I don't know how I can top myself because I was the first rock artist to play in space. Like, what?
Which is fair.
It's valid. It's a valid thing.
Fair.
So he's like, I don't know how I can top myself. And they're like, listen, we get it, but, like, you can now play for aliens, which will be the first, like, time that that's ever been done, too. So you can top yourself. So he's finally like, sure, I'll go with y'all back up to the space station. So they finally convince him. They call Aunt Judy, and they're like, can you meet us on the beach so we can all take off together in the space shuttle? So she, like, gets there right on time, and they're, like, coming down, but right then, the army is also actively, like, trying to search for them, because, again, nobody knows where Zenon is.
Or ATVs.
Yeah, they're literally on ATVs going down to the beach. They get on the shuttle, and as soon as they get back in, it's driven by Commander Plank, I think. He finally gets on board with everything.
Yeah, he agrees to help find the aliens.
Right, because Nebula was talking to him up in the space station, and Zenon was communicating with Nebula. So he's the one that has to physically drive the shuttle back up to space. So they get there and they're kind of floating around because the aliens actually sent Zenon like a map of where they were. So they're trying to fly to where they are on the map. They get there and at first they don't see anything, and then they kind of see this big like colorful flapping thing and they realize that's the aliens. And the next thing they know is that one of like a little like a sequence of lights, I guess, like appears in the back of their shuttle, and that's the aliens like communicating with Zenon, and she can understand what they're saying even though everybody else just hears a whoa. Like I don't know how else to characterize it, but that's what it sounds like. But she can communicate with them, and they were basically like, yo, we've been lost in space for like 3 years and we need to get back on track. Can we like borrow your charts? And then she was just like, oh yeah, like of course. And then Orion, like, she's explaining this to everybody, and Orion's like, yo, why didn't they just take it? And then she's like, because they don't believe in taking things that aren't theirs without asking politely.
It's really cute. Nice aliens. Real nice.
They are very nice aliens. And they're like,
etiquette-driven aliens.
Yes. Sweet. And they're like, oh, we'll actually tow you guys back to the space station. So they tow them back to the space station because I think they were about to run out of gas anyways. Really
her mom is flying it at this point because Commander Plank can't.
Right. Yeah, they convinced her mom to do it. That was the whole thing, is her mom hadn't done it in quite a few years.
And was afraid to fly.
Right, and was afraid to fly the space shuttle.
Yeah, but, Zenon gives her courage like she gave Aunt Judy courage, like she gives everybody courage.
Right. So it's like a whole group of them are in there. They get back to the space station. Like General Hammond is of course pissed, and he's like, "Yo, what were you doing?" And like and she tells him the whole story. She's like, "There's aliens and blah blah blah." And then he was just like, okay, but we still got to decommission the space station because like Wyndham and them just fucked the thing up, girl.
Yeah, and it's completely the problem is that it's out of orbit and it's falling apart.
Yeah, it's literally
like
out of orbit,
sections. We get apart. Images of sections of it just straight like.
Oh, that's because they decommissioned them. Yeah, that's why. Yeah, so they would like let them off as space junk, essentially.
Which is.
So then at that moment,
humans and trash, man.
The aliens decide that they're like, we're going to show you that we're here. Because he doesn't believe the aliens.
Yeah, he's like, where's your proof?
Even though, like, there's a bunch of adults who were also on this flight and saw them.
And my daughter defied me.
Right.
In pursuit of this.
So he's mad at Margie too, but like, it's okay.
Not real mad. He's that type of dad.
Yeah. So then they fly around, and the aliens fly around, and he sees them, and it's this whole thing. And then as a thank you, the aliens put them back in orbit and bring back all the pieces that they've flown off and decommissioned as space junk to thank them. And then we end up finding out that they had really been trying to contact Zenon the whole time, not Protozoa at all. They were just using the old transmissions of Protozoa's big performance in order to get her attention. And then the final scene we have is Aunt Judy and Commander Plank getting married.
Whoop, whoop.
And Protozoa debuting a new song, The Galaxy is Ours.
The Galaxy is
and
ours.
It's just as great as you remember it.
Zoom, zoom, zoom.
And that is the end of Zenon The Zequel. And we'll be right back with the review.
So to get into the review, this is an interesting one because I realized that I watched it as we were watching it.
Yeah.
I was like, oh wait, no, I do remember this. I actually really remember. I specifically remember those aliens in that spaceship, which I do have not a few questions, but I'm just a little confused on the mechanics of that situation because it's flapping wings and there's no air in space. So I'm just like, what, like, are we saying that it's like an electromagnetic flying on the, pulse distribution, magnetic fields that it creates type deal? Or am I just supposed to suspend? I'm probably just supposed to suspend my disbelief. It looks cool though. It's a dope little spaceship. But
the way they actually coded the aliens was really good.
Yeah, it was really I liked it too.
It wasn't typical of the time. For 01.
But that being said, it was it did remind me of like Close Encounters in that way. Mm-hmm. It was very sort of, like aliens who are actually they're just like making contact. Like they don't have any sort of ulterior motive at all.
Yeah.
Which was, pleasant. And we kind of talked about this as an encounter story, which it is from the obvious perspective of, aliens in space and Zenon meeting aliens, and of course Zenon would be the first person to get contact.
Of course.
Because that's
Zenon is the chosen one in the galaxy.
She is truly she's noble. Like, it's in her name. You know? She's a noble child. But so a huge part of this story, like, that's kind of what the story's about. The story's really about Zenon and Margie sort of going on this adventure together.
Yeah.
And being sort of stuck with each other. And this weird way in which, like, Margie clearly... Envy is probably the best word to use to describe how she interacts with Zenon, because it's not just... She doesn't dislike... It's not just that she just dislikes Zenon. It's that she wishes she were Zenon. Or she thinks that Zenon... It's a grass is greener situation. Like, she thinks Zenon has all of these things that she just can't have.
Right.
And on the other side, like, Zenon does not like Margie, and it is because, like, of how Margie approached her from jump in the first film.
She called her viral.
She really did. And viral is not a good thing. It wasn't a good thing in this time.
Yeah.
You know, we flipped that, but it was not the case.
Or it will not be the case.
It will not be the case
in 2051.
In 2051. It will not.
When this one took place.
No. And it will probably be a result of COVID. I think post-COVID, viral will now not be a great term to use.
Yeah, I wonder if that's what
it'll trigger.
What if Zenon's like predicting everything low key?
So Chelsea Clinton might be president.
Huh. Interesting. But
yeah, so I think in a lot of ways this is also sort of an encounter story from Margie and Zenon, which is kind of cool. And, like, by the end of it, we obviously do get to a point where, you know, they have their moment of Zenon being like, why are you like this? And Margie being like, everything's so easy for you, which is a fair, like, not critique, but a fair, like,
looking
observation.
At it from the outside.
Yeah, that, like, Zenon, everything comes easy for you. Like, you get to just, like, kind of barrel through life. And I've never gotten to do that. My life is, like, really tough and so I have to... She has a feeling that she has to sort of put on and create, like, a best defense, great offense situation so that no one can pierce her.
Mm-hmm.
And Zenon is essentially just like, well, you don't actually have to do that. And then also, like, everybody has their stuff. You know, everybody has their stuff. Like, don't just assume because my life looks like something that it's that.
Right.
And you don't have to put on for anybody either. Like, so we can be friends. But but they have to, you know, sort of go through the trials and tribulations of, like, clashing as identities, as, like, cultures, because Zenon's from space and Margie's not. And maybe on Earth, like, Margie actually does have to do that a lot more. But Zenon is from a place where people are pretty accepting, so... Because they have to be. Yeah. So that's just not a part of the culture that she's grown up with, of having to, like, pretend to be anything. Because pretending in a space day is never going to be a good thing. So, yeah, I just like that they took the encounter concept, and I think it was purposeful that they took the encounter concept and made it, like, literal, but then also added this very nice, like, allegorical, figurative layer to it with these two girls forming a friendship through that experience.
Yeah, no, I agree. I think also Margie's dad is, like, in the military, so she's had to move a lot, which she references, and how she's always having to almost recreate herself. And as a military brat, who did also move a lot, I've actually heard that from a lot of, like, that's a pretty common sentiment from a lot of, like, military brats. I never personally felt like I had to do that. I was always very comfortable with moving, but I understand completely how for, like, some people they view it as, like, this is a place for me to be a new person. This is a place for me to do new things. This is a place for me to be whoever I think the ideal person is.
A detachment of sorts from whatever was before, which is also a fit because they literally detach parts of the space station.
Right, exactly. So I completely understand that. And then I think it goes back to what we were talking about with the first one, which is that because Zenon grew up the way she did, she's so self-assured and so self-confident that, as, like, you pretending to be something does not compute for her.
Yeah, she doesn't even understand. Like
nobody else on the space station like, that's not a thing.
Yeah, so she just thinks Margie's an ass. You know what I mean? Like,
she doesn't have any empathy
that Margie is, like, you know, like, I'm sure that she thinks but she just thinks Margie's just being a dick to be a dick. And I mean, that's how we're supposed to read it too. Like, that's supposed to be the reveal. But yeah, like, she doesn't. I think the idea of not being self-assured
doesn't click for her.
And we even see it a bit in the first one with, like, when she's talking with Aunt Judy.
Yeah.
Like, Aunt Judy being so insecure, Zenon's, like, confused.
She just doesn't get her. She's like, why wouldn't you just do whatever you want to do?
Yeah, and it's not like it's fear. Like, because even with her mom, she's kind of like that about her fear of flying, but at the same, she's like, all right, it's a fear that she has to get over. But that's different from an insecurity.
Yeah.
It's not something that, and she has to learn to read that and be like, oh.
Not everybody is like me and just has learned to walk around without having a fear of being who they truly are. Yeah. That's really what it is. Because it's like, that just doesn't exist. Even Nebula doesn't have that. Like, nobody else on that space station, that doesn't exist.
At least we haven't seen it.
Or, yeah, that we've seen.
Even, like, Plank doesn't care. Like, Zenon tells him he's lame all the time, and Plank is like, whatever. I gotta run the space station, man. Like, I can't be the cool party animal. That don't make no sense.
But yes, there's just some great, like, quips in here between Margie and Zenon that are great. Just, like, the animosity that they have towards really each other. And it just so peaks fun when they're going up to Nova Linda.
Yeah, and Margie, I do distinctly remember when we saw it happen on the screen, both Chelsea and I were like, oh, right, Margie falls in the dirt. And we both remember feeling so satisfied as children. Yeah, that happened to her.
Yeah. Because it's just because they're two different types of people, you know, and it's like Zenon is just literally the type that it's like, okay, if you tell me I have to do something, I will relentlessly pursue that. Or if I know that I have to do something, I relentlessly pursue that regardless of what kind of obstacles are in my way. Whereas I think most people, don't. They learn to give up easier, you know, and like Zenon just never learned that because, again, structure and the fireball. The fireball. Nobody ever told her to diminish that line of thinking. They were just like,
shine bright, baby, just shine on the shadows.
Like, I think maybe it is very much us. Like, if you're taught like a more scientific or mathematical way of thinking, it's like you always finish the equation, you know, like it's just like you fill it out and you don't stop, you keep going. Like, I think that's also how a lot of scientists think too.
There's a sense of sort of perseverance and it's a work ethic that sort of inherently comes with sort of STEM things. Yes. And it is just because you can't give up, you know what I mean? You can't give up on making sure the equation is right, putting up a wall.
Right.
Or putting up a roof. Like, you can't do that. You can do that, but the house is going to come down. You know? Like, you can't give up on doing a proof halfway through because, like, the scientific community isn't going to accept it. Like, your peers are going to say that that's not real. Like, I'm not going to take you on your word.
Right.
I have to see what you got to show me something. So I think that because of that, there's a sense of, you know, being very thorough. Yeah. And showcasing, like, where I started, how I got here. Mm-hmm. And that, I feel like that plays a part in the way Zenon sort of approaches the world.
I also love how when they're initially trying to, when she's initially showing Plank and Orion that she's heard some alien communications, she's like, you know, just because I can't explain it doesn't mean it's not true. Which
is why that's a very unscientific thing.
It is.
That she says, and that's part of this too.
Yes.
She's willing to open that space up, and everybody else around her isn't.
Right.
Because that's like a culture thing.
I just thought it was funny because I'm like, this is like the basis of like religion.
It really is. But it's also, I do find it interesting to like run back to that idea of this as an encounter story. The premise that you might need to be able to do that. Like, the alien encounter only happens, like, our contact for the first time only happens because somebody's willing to believe a little. Mm-hmm. Someone's willing to have a little faith and know that I might not be able to explain it yet. I'll get there. And the reality is that is actually the impetus behind science. Like, science actually, even as a word, science, it comes from, you know, skio skide, the Latin verb meaning to know. Like, that's where we get that word from. And it is about, like, this idea of it's the pursuit of knowledge, but it's the uncovering of knowledge. That's why you start with science is a scientific method. You start with a hypothesis of what something is. And then you test it to see if that holds up. But you've got to have a basic sense. It's like we've forgotten that in order to do that the first time, in order to say if, you have to have a basic sense of, like, it might not be true. but it also could be. I don't know that it is yet. I kind of believe it is. I'm going to test it out and see what happens. And I think that science has... I don't think science has forgotten that, but I think that on the ground and the way that people use it and enact it, especially colloquially, tends to be as, like, definitive and, like, anti-religion or anti-belief. And I really like that in this they sort of managed to showcase it in a kind of clever way. That actually, no, belief is a very fundamental part of science. You need it in order to, like, start the process, which is cool.
Yeah. No, I think belief plays a big part in, honestly, most of the Zenon movies. Because nobody ever believes her, even though at this point she's been proven.
Every time
the girl doesn't lie.
The girl don't lie.
She's naughty, but she doesn't lie.
She's not even naughty. She's just mischievous.
Yeah.
She's like British.
She's a curious
naughty.
cat.
She's naughty. You know?
Naughty.
Well, yeah, I know, but I don't know. I feel like when America says naughty, like when I hear it that way, I hear like Dennis the Menace, but naughty is more like Leave It to Beaver. I don't know. It's a very weird classification, but or problem child versus Dennis the Menace. That's probably the better way to put it.
Yeah. But yeah, she's a spunky little girl. She's a spunky little girl. Yeah. I think one of the other things I liked about the little aliens, the way that they did the aliens, it reminded me kind of Arrival a little bit.
That's so real, actually.
It's like, I don't know, because it's like, obviously,
that's like,
it reminded me like of Arrival a little bit, and
that tracks.
Not exactly, because obviously the aliens in Arrival were like a different type of, but you know what I mean,
like inky and heptapods.
Yeah, the way that they,
right? So.
yeah, it was. But the way that they like also did them, it just it gave me that like type of thing. Also the sounds they were making.
Yeah, and the whole like only certain people could communicate situation.
Right.
Although that was because of learning and being willing to. But still. The invading the brain thing.
Yeah, it's similar. It is very similar. Huh. Invading the brain of a white woman. Yes.
Yeah. So if you guys were wondering, also in Close Encounters, that also happens.
I'm just saying, it's a
Close Encounters of the Third Kind. Yeah, they also invade the brain of a white woman. So maybe, I mean, I don't. Never mind. Never mind. I don't think there's a way to say that, but I don't know, white women, if your brain starts being invaded, I don't know. I should stop this line of. Let me just.
Anyways,
thank you.
This movie is also like peak protozoa.
Like, it really is.
He is great as a recluse. Just a depressed recluse.
With his like permanent 5 o'clock shadow.
Yes.
Of his beard growing out. He's wonderful. Protozoa as a character, I think, from the first time we meet him, is wonderful. Like, I love this version of a rock star because he's not an ass. Mm-hmm. I really like that it shows
he just likes
him.
Fun.
Yeah, he really does like fun, and I really like that he has a very appropriate relationship with Zenon.
Yeah,
and I appreciate. And I know it's a kids film, so like you would expect that. But ironically enough, that's why it's great to actually see it be executed and not be weird. Mm-hmm. You know what I mean? Like, it's a completely appropriate relationship that he has with, like, his fan.
Yeah.
You know?
His fan that he just happens to have gotten to know
by
this point.
Because, I'm sure they keep basic lines.
It's literally like they're, like, equals. Like, I think that's very much how he sees her. Like, even when he sees her, he's like, oh my God, Zenon! Like, like, He's like, that's my girl.
Yeah, but not in a creepy
But not
way.
like that's my girl.
Or not in any sense of like, I never get the feeling that he'd ever take advantage of Zenon.
No.
Or like Margie. You know what I mean?
No.
And it's like, in this day and age, watching that, I should have been a lot more sort of skeeved at the concept of those two girls alone. With a grown Nova Linda, in his recluse hideaway
that Aunt Judy just dropped
on the coast of Australia. I should be very upset with Aunt Judy for dropping, like, we all know the Roman Polanski story. Yeah. Don't drop kids off at people's
with
mansions.
grown men. Yeah.
Grown men's
you
mansions.
never get that overtone here though, which is really nice.
Which is really nice. Like, it was pleasant.
He's literally just like, it's literally like him talking to a friend and explaining why he has like not been able to write or do anything and been out of the public eye.
Yeah.
For like 6 months.
And he's charismatic. Like, as a persona, he seems very charismatic, but he's not, like I said, he's just not an ass. Like,
yeah.
He doesn't seem to walk around like the world should be bowing to him. It's kind of a thing of like the world happens to bow to him. And he's like, but I love it, babe. Right. Like, all right, cool. Like, let's do the thing. Right. He's very. I like him.
It was also nice seeing him back on top at the end when he performed "The Galaxy Is Ours" at the wedding. It was just cute.
It was all very.
Protozoa's always just been a fun character, though.
Yeah, he conceptually, like everything about him.
Shout out to the actor. I think his name is Philip Reese, who played him.
Yeah,
He's English.
Thank you for that.
Yeah, thank you for that.
Yeah, it's very, very.
We appreciate your commitment to this character.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, I think with that, do you think you would show this to the babes? The babes?
Yeah, the kids can watch it, I think. Here's the thing. It's not the worst sequel in the world.
The
Zequel. It's definitely better than Cheetah Girls 2, comparatively to the first.
Yeah.
I definitely enjoyed it when I was younger. I want to say that as much as I loved the first Zenon when I was little, I think I loved the, like, graphics and the story of this one a lot more when I was younger.
One? Yeah.
But again, because I was really into space. Like, that was the thing that I was about, you know? So, like, the fact, with aliens and the whole thing, like, I was really into that storyline, I think, a lot more than... And you get more Protozoa, which is great. Yeah. So I think that I'd let them, like, they could definitely watch it. I don't know if I'm going to sit down with them and watch it, but I do think that, it's still, it holds up in terms of, like, not having anything that I'm upset about. It's an encounter story where the encounters all work out and where everybody does come to a realization of everybody being full and complex and, to some degree, and nothing goes awry. Yeah. Everyone sort of works through their stuff with each other, and we come to a good place at the end. And even the big bad in this, like, that's also a really cool thing about this particular film, is that there really isn't a big bad.
No, it's just kind of the military intervention, which
but even that, like, there's a... And, my feelings on America's military in particular are complicated. They're very complicated. But, like, even with that, they showcase that, like, the military in this is, like, they're not actually the bad guys. Yeah. They're doing what they're supposed to. Like, this is their job. They have to do this, and it's for the safety of everybody.
And it makes sense.
It makes, like, all of this is, like, it's all reasonable.
It's like, if you guys are about to drop out of gravity, we should come up there and make sure that doesn't happen. Well, yeah, sorry, drop out of orbit.
Yeah, but
yeah, we should come up there and make sure that doesn't happen.
Like, yeah, it's like all of that.
It's
like,
nothing malicious.
Exactly, as opposed to the first one where there's a big...
They're actively malicious,
and Lutz is the worst. But, yeah, I think that, like, I definitely... I might, if it's on, if we're at the end, like, I love the idea of this is another one where I love the idea of my kids singing these songs. Mm-hmm. I want to hear Zoom Zoom, Zoom Zoom Zoom, and I want to hear The Galaxy Is Ours. I want to hear my kids singing those songs, because I think that they're very good, empowering songs for little children, especially little girls, to be singing.
Yeah, they're just fun. Like, I mean, we're 20-year-old women, and we still
we grown.
Yes. And we still know Zoom 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 Zoom.
Yeah, like, know all the lyrics. It was great.
Yes. And so even this one we had actually forgotten about and then when
it came on, we were like, yo!
Oh, yes!
And knew all the lyrics by muscle memory. It was fantastic.
Yes. So I would completely agree. Like, I would definitely show this one. I think it's still fun. The story is still fun. The names are still great. The boy's name that she likes is Orion.
Orion. Yeah, come on.
It's just great. And yeah, I mean, I still feel like it's a fun one. The animosity scenes alone.
They really are. Like, her and Margie, like,
they just go back
I can see why they were like, we're not going to bring anybody from the first one back off of Earth but Margie.
Literally.
Because they riff so well. It's really well done. It's like the same way that I understand exactly how we ended up with, Kirsten Storms and Raven both being in, like, Kim Possible. They were like, we have a good
team
thing
that
works.
Here.
Like, let's just...
Like, it very much reminded me... This is a very specific reference. But it very much reminded me of, like, the riffing style between her and Margie of the Facts of Life season 4
That's
and
so
5.
Specific.
I know, but the writing got really good.
Those are the best seasons of that
The
show.
writing got so good, and the way that the girls all interacted with each other
it was like peak, because we had gotten past the hurdle of establishing who each of them were, and they were a little bit older, so you could do a little more.
Yes.
I'm sure, like, even with just the actresses themselves, and it was, and Mrs. Garrett also, like, got really, like, fleshed out spicier. It was so good,
and it was so good, and this was reminiscent of
Blair
that.
got really good.
Oh, Blair got so good.
Like, like to the point where you almost didn't hate her anymore. You're like,
I love Blair.
Jo was my girl.
See, that makes sense.
Jo was it. No, it completely.
That makes perfect sense. No, I was a Blair girl, which also makes sense.
I had 2 god sisters that were sisters, and one of them looked like Jo, and I decided she was my favorite because she looked like Jo from Facts of Life when I was like 5.
No, I just loved Blair and her like everybody must love me attitude. Like, it was just great. The hair. Anyways, that's completely off topic of Zenon.
It really is, but
yes, you guys, the riffing between her and Margie. Yes, but also watch Facts of Life. It deserves more.
It really does.
Writing wise, credits wise, all that rise.
Girl, like, talk about girls. Like, that's a great sitcom for women, and
it is. It was. It deserved.
It deserved.
But yes, the riffing is just great. And yeah, I would definitely show this to my kids. I would actually say, if you want to rewatch this one, I would be like, yeah, you know what?
Yeah, maybe
sure, it's still a fun one. Yeah.
Maybe not directly after the first. It might.
Yeah,
maybe. It might. Yeah.
But if you're ever bored and you got some time and you're like, ooh, Disney Plus, sure.
Disney Plus.
Ooh, Disney Plus.
And you all want to listen to Meghan Markle talk about, is it Jumbo that they named
Disney?
No, she does a narration of the elephants.
Yeah, she's doing the elephants.
It's good though. I watched it. It was good. It was cute. It's cute. I haven't watched the dolphin one with
Did she narrate that too?
No, that's Natalie Portman, I believe.
Oh, okay.
Could be wrong, but I think it's Natalie Portman. I haven't watched that one yet though. But the elephant was cute.
There you go. There you go. Disney Plus promo. But yeah, rewatch it if you ever have a chance. It's totally hilarious.
And with that, we will catch you guys next time.
Bye.
Thanks for listening to this week's episode of The Critics Kingdom. Don't forget to follow us on Spotify and SoundCloud so you can stay up to date, as well as interacting and letting us know what you guys think on social media. You can find us on Twitter at Critics Kingdom and on Instagram at The Critics Kingdom. We're excited to talk to you again next week.